Good morning friends, welcome back to Parnika tutorials. In this video, I want to discuss about exception handling in Java. So I sincerely request everyone to check the entire video for better understanding. So now we have three types of errors. One is compile time errors, runtime errors, logical errors. What is meant by compile time errors? Let's take that when you are writing a Java program. Okay, you want to display something, then what you will do, you will write a statement called system.out.println, and whatever you want to print, suppose let's take that I want to print hi, then you will write like this. This is the correct syntax. In place of system, you forgot to write the t, or you forgot to end with semicolon, some mistake you have done. So this is what, if you compile this program, you have saved this program, you forgot t here, you forgot the semicolon here, and you have saved the program and you have compiled it with using the command called javac filename.java. When you are compiling, you will get the errors, means the compiler will show the errors for you. In this line number, this is the error is there. Then you will read the error and then you will understand, okay, in this line, I have done some mistake, so I will go to the program again and I will understand, okay, I forgot to provide the t here and then I forgot to provide the semicolon. Then again I will save the program and compile it. As there are no errors, then the class file will be successfully created and then you can run the program by giving a command called java file name. Okay, so this is what the compile errors means. There are syntax errors are there. You need to follow the proper syntax. If you are not following the proper syntax, then you will get an errors during the compile time. Now the logical errors. Let's take that I have written a program to verify a given number is Armstrong number or not. Suppose let's take that someone has given me to verify 1414 is an Armstrong number or not. That person who is writing the program, he has read it as like somewhere, or someone has taught him, you need to compute 1 cube plus 4 cube plus 1 cube 4 cube. Now this logic is wrong. Why this logic is wrong? Because an Armstrong number is what? First you need to find the number of digits. How many digits are there in this one? 4 digits are there. Then you need to take each digit power number of digits. Like that you need to compute the sum. If this total sum is equal to 1414, then you can say that it is an Armstrong number. Otherwise you can say that it is not an Armstrong number. If your logic itself is wrong, then for the correct, suppose if it is 153, okay, you have written the logic as 1 power 2 plus 5 power 2 plus 3 power 2. Then 1 power 2 is how much? 1. 5 power 2 is how much? 25. 3 power 2 how much? 9. So this will be 35. So he will say that 35 is not equal to 153. So he will say that 153 is not an Armstrong number. But however, 153 is an Armstrong number. But what is the exact logic? He need to compute 1 cube plus 5 cube plus 3 cube. Then he will get the sum as 153. So it's his when you have written the program, your logic itself is wrong. So you will not get the correct output. So this kind of errors we will call it as logical errors. So what you need to do to improve or to rectify the logical errors, you need to be very good at logical thinking, or you need to be very good at concept. Okay. Now let me discuss about the runtime errors. These runtime errors itself we'll call it as an exception. Suppose let's take that somewhere you have taken the a value as 10 and then b value is equal to 5 and you have written 10 by 5. This is absolutely fine. But later you have modified the b value is equal to 0. Then if you write a by b, which is 10 by 0, which is what? Normal in mathematics it will give infinity. But in a programming language, this is not correct way. So this is an exception. Then the program will halt here and it will give an error for you or an exception for you. I hope you have understood. Is it clear? Similarly, you have created an array of size 5. Okay, you have created an array of size 5. So you can able to store 5 integer constants starting from 0th index 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you are trying to print in an array A value which is there at the 10th index, but here you have only up to index 4. Then it will give you an error called, or an exception called, array index out of bound, or simply you can say that index out of bounds exception. So these kind of runtime errors we will call it as an exception. So what is an exception? An exception is an unexpected event that occurs during program execution and it disturbs the flow of the program execution. So again let me tell you, an exception is an unexpected event. We are not expected. Is it clear? See, we did not assume that B value will become 0, and then when you are performing A by B, it became an issue for you. Similarly, when you have asked the user to enter the index and you are trying to print a value in some array at that particular index, and let's take that index is not there, you did not expect. Am I right? So these kind of issues we'll call it as an exception, and it occurs during the program execution, meaning is that this will happen during the runtime. So now for handling all these exceptions, you will have a package called java.lang, and you will have a super class called throwable. The throwable classes have the errors and exception. And what is the difference between an error and an exception is, exception the programmer can handle, whereas an error the programmer cannot handle. Is it clear? So the exception class again have the two subclasses. One is the runtime exception and another one is IOException. The IOException can be even called as checked exception. Checked exception, whereas runtime exception we will call it as unchecked exception. Unchecked exception. So normally exceptions are of two types. One is checked exception and another one is unchecked exception. What I will do is that I will erase this one so that I can use this place to discuss in detail about the checked exception and then unchecked exception. The checked exceptions usually will be checked by the compiler. So these kind of exceptions we will call it as compile time exceptions. The examples for the checked exceptions are file not found exception, file not found exception where here E should be capital, or class not found exception, class not found exception. All these are the examples for the checked exceptions. So these errors or these exceptions will be verified by the compiler. So these kind of exceptions we'll call it as checked exceptions or compile time exception, and even we can call it as an IO exception also. When it comes to the runtime exception or unchecked exception, unchecked exceptions, these exceptions will not be verified by the compiler or it will not be checked by the compiler. So these kind of exceptions we'll call them as a runtime exceptions. The examples for the unchecked exceptions are, one is arithmetic exception, arithmetic exception, a null pointer exception, the third one is index out of bounds exception. Okay, and remember one important point. In this arithmetic exception, A and E should be in capital letters. In null pointer exception, N, P, E are in capital letters. Index out of bound index, okay, exception. I should be capital, O should be capital, here O should be capital, B, E should be capital. So this is about the unchecked exception. Now let me discuss what is meant by arithmetic exception. Whenever you are dividing in a program, somewhere you are dividing a number by 0, then arithmetic exception will rise. Okay, then index out of bounds exception, meaning is that when in an array or in a string, that particular index there is nothing is there, like in the previous example I have taken, let's take that I have declared an integer array of size 5. Okay, or let me write like this. I have taken 5 elements, and you know that at index 0 value 1 is there, at index 1 value 2 is there, at index 2 value 3 is there, at index 3 value 4 is there, at index 4 value 5 is there. So these are the indices, and you know that always array index will start from 0. So these top one are the indices and the bottom one are the values. Now somewhere you have written a program or a statement to print the value which is there at the 10th index. Is there a 10th index in the array? No, it is having up to index 4 because the size of the array is 5. So always index will start from 0 and go up to size minus 1. As the size is 5, it will go up to the index 4. But you are trying to print a value which is out of this index. So that's why you will get an error called index out of bounds exception. Is it clear? Similarly, null pointer exception means what it is. You have declared a string variable. Let me write here. You have declared a string variable s1 and you are storing a string called null. Okay. For this string, you are trying to print the length or trying to compute the length. How can you do? You can write s1 dot length. It will return an integer value. So what you are doing here is that here you are writing int a is equal to s1 dot length. This null is an empty one. For that one, computing the length is very funny. So that's why you will get an exception called null pointer exception. So these are the few examples related to the unchecked exceptions, and these are the examples. Let's take that you are trying to open a file which is not there. Am I right? Then file not found exception will come. Means you are trying to open a file in the read mode and such file is not there. Let's take that you are writing read1.txt in some particular folder, but that file is not there. Then you will get an error called file not exception. Similarly, you are trying to open a class from a particular package, but that class is not there. Then you will get an exception called ClassNotFoundException. So these kind of exceptions will call it as checked exception. Okay, so these will be checked by the compiler, but these will not be checked by the compiler. Now what I will do, I will erase this entire content and I will discuss 5 keywords which will be very useful in the exception. The 5 keywords are try, catch, finally, okay, and then throws, and then throw. So these are the 5 keywords will be useful for you to use the or handle the exception. Now let me discuss each one. The try keyword will be useful for you to identify the exception. So it will be useful to identify the exception. Identify an exception. Once there is an exception or the runtime error, then it will verify which exception has highs. Then a corresponding object will be created and it will be thrown. Okay, so it will identify an exception and the corresponding exception object will be thrown. If someone has thrown, we need to catch it. Am I right? If someone has thrown a ball, someone need to catch it. Am I right? So the catch will be useful for you to catch that error and it will handle it. It will handle the exception. Whatever the exception has been raised, it will handle. Okay. Then finally, will be useful for you to execute certain statements compulsory or mandatorily. Okay, some statements you want to execute compulsory. What kind of exception has raised? You want to execute this one. Then you will provide here in finally block, you will provide the statements. So the statements which are there, the statements are there in finally block, are there in finally block will be executed mandatory or compulsory. Okay, so this is about finally block, try block and catch block. Now you have the throws and throw. Now throws means you will throw the exception. Okay, now when we have written a program or whenever we have discussed about the input and output, like we want to read the input from the user, then we have used the input stream reader and buffer reader. That time in the main method we have written throws exception. Am I right? So if you want to throw it, then the system will handle this exception. So how you can write this kind of exception is like you will write void and you will write the method. Okay, whatever the exception has rise in this method, you want to throw it. So throws, suppose if it is an IOException, you will write throws IOException. If you don't know what kind of exception, you will just simply give the parent class called exception, throws exception. Okay, so that is what we have written. Like in the input and output video, we have written public static void main throws exception. So whatever the exception will be raised, it will be thrown. Okay, and the system will handle. Now there are two types of exceptions. One is predefined exceptions and another one is user defined exceptions. What are the predefined exceptions means? Like arithmetic exception, index out of bounds in exception, null pointer exceptions. These are the predefined. If that issue comes, what kind of exception or what kind of action need to be taken, it is already predefined. But if you want to define user defined exceptions, like I am creating one application, so let's take that in Parnika tutorials, I have one job, okay, and I have kept a restriction that the people whose age is less than 18, whose age is greater than 35 should not apply. If they are applying for it or they are entering their age which is less than 18 and greater than 35, I should not allow, I should raise an exception. So those kind of exceptions, we'll call them as user defined exceptions. So what it will do is that this throw keyword will manually create an object for that user defined exception and it will throw. Okay, so these are the 5 keywords we will use. In unchecked exceptions or runtime exceptions, we'll handle with the help of try, catch and finally. And for the checked or user defined one, we will use the throws, or we can handle with the help of try and catch. So this one, checked exceptions, we will handle with the throw, and try and catch, any one of them we can use, but unchecked one we should use the try catch finally. Okay, now what I will do is that I will write a program to make you understand about the try catch finally block and how it will work. Then we will discuss these programs in the desktop. Now let me write a program and let me write class, and then I will write the first. Okay, inside this class I am defining the method called public static void main. So public is an access specifier and you have the static. Okay, a void is a return type and main is the method. So as this main method is there, so this class will call it as a main class or the driver class. So whatever the program you are saving, it should be first.java. And then here you need to write a string where s is capital, and you can write it as AR or args or anything. Now what I am doing here is that I am performing like system.out.println. Okay, I am writing 2 plus 3. Okay, similarly I am writing system.out.println. Okay, and then I am writing 2 into 3. Similarly, I am writing system.out.println. I am writing 2 divided by 0. And then I am writing system.out.println. Welcome to exceptional handling. Okay, welcome to exception handling. Okay, welcome to I hope it will be visible, otherwise let me write here, or let me simply write welcome to exceptions. Okay, then I will close the main method and I will close the class. Okay, now look at here, this statement system.out.println 2 plus 3, where 2 is an integer constant, 3 is an integer constant, so it will return the output as 5 for you. Similarly, 2 into 3, it will be given as 6, but 2 by 0, in mathematics it is infinity, but in a programming language, this one will raise an exception. So then a program will be, an unevented exception came, means an unexpected event occurred, then the program will be halted here, and then you will get an error, runtime error, you will get it. So what kind of error you will get? Arithmetic exception, you cannot divide something, you will get it. Okay, is it clear? Then this statement will not be executed, so you will not get an output called welcome to exception. So in this line there is an error. See, during compile time it will not verify, because 2 is an integer constant, division is an arithmetic operator, 0 is an integer constant, semicolon, everything it is syntactically correct. But during the runtime, when you are running, you need to perform the operation 2 by 0. So where denominator is having the 0, numerator is having the 2. So this will give an exception, and that kind of exception we will call it as an arithmetic exception. You are dividing by 0. Is it clear? Now once it happened, then this statement will not be executed. So these kind of statements, we can say divide by something, okay, or printing some value at a particular index from an array, or a null pointer one, all these are the critical statements. The remaining thing are the normal statements. So critical statements, what we need to do is that we need to provide in the try block. So once there is an exception, the try block will identify and it will throw that exception, and catch block will be catching that one, and it will do a certain task, or it will handle the task. So what you need to do is that if you want to execute this statement also, and whatever the error it is giving, only the people who know the Java programming, they can understand, but others cannot understand. But when I am creating a software and giving to the user, when user is giving the input, somewhere he has given the input as 0, but that place the 0 should not be provided. So it should be given to him in a output which can be understand. Okay, I should not give a 0 here. Is it clear? Something. Is it clear? So suppose if I ask someone to withdraw the money, if he enters 0 rupees, how he can withdraw? Or someone is going to the ATM and withdrawing some 10 rupees. 10 rupees cannot be withdrawn from an ATM. Minimum you need to provide 100 rupees. Am I right? So then whatever the output or whatever the error is giving on the ATM screen, everyone should be able to understand. If it is giving in some language people cannot understand, then it is useless. Am I right? So what I will do is that I will modify this program using the try catch finally, so that you will understand that one. So what I will do is that I will write try, and whatever the statements earlier I have written, I can write here. So system.out.println 2 plus 3, println 2 plus 3. Similarly, I will not perform the multiplication, directly I will perform the division. So system.out.println 2 by 3, also not 2 by 3, then error will not occur, okay, by 0. So system.out.println, I will not, if I write here, what will happen, you can understand. First let me write here, I will write welcome to exceptions, or welcome to Parnika tutorials. Let me do the self promotion. When the people are not doing promotion, we need to do our own promotion. Let me close this one and let me write the cache block. Okay, cache, you can write what kind of exception it is. It is an arithmetic exception. So you can write arithmetic exception some E. Okay, then you need to write here what you want to perform now. So I want to perform another statement. I want to display a statement like you cannot divide a number by 0. You cannot divide a number. You cannot divide by 0. Let me simply write it like that. and let me close the catch block. Let me close the main method. Let me close the class. Okay, now look at here. What will happen? The try block will try to identify the exception. There is no issue. If I compile this program, when I run this program, what will happen? System.out.println. This statement will give me the output as 5. But when 2 by 0, an arithmetic exception will rise, then the try block will create an object and throw it. Then you need to have a catch block. Am I right? Now what this is doing, it is catching the arithmetic exception. Then it will execute this one. So you will get an output as 5. You cannot divide by 0. So this is what? This is a manually you are giving some statement. So earlier what is happening? What kind of exception was raised? It was displayed. The people who know the Java program can only understand. But now if you write this program and run it, then you will get an output as 5. You cannot divide by 0. So then the user will understand, okay, somewhere I am dividing by 0. Then he will modify it to 1 or something he will do. Okay, but here what is the problem? The exception is rising and it is throwing the object and it is catching. But after executing this one, it will execute the next steps. As there is no other steps, it will stop here. But this statement was not executed because after executing the catch block, it was not returned to here. So what I can do, I want this statement to be always printed. Then what I will do is that I will keep this statement in the finally. Okay. Now let me write the finally block for you all. Okay, let me close the catch. Finally. So finally block will be useful for you to execute the statements compulsory or mandatory. So I will remove the statement here because here it is not printing. So I will write here system.out.println. Okay, welcome to Parnika tutorials, or I will simply write Parnika tutorials. Okay, let me close the finally block. Let me close the method. Let me close the class. See, what are the statements you want to execute compulsory, whether an exception is raised or not? Then those statements you can provide in the finally block. Now what will happen is that you will get the output as 5. Here I am placing it as 0. Then this exception will be raised and then you will get an output as you cannot divide by 0, and then Parnika tutorials you will get. Suppose let's take that here you have provided some 6 by 2. Then this is not an exception. So you will get output as 5. You will get the output as 3. Then you will get the output as Parnika tutorials. As there is no exception as raised, so this statement will not be executed. Okay, are you able to understand it or not? Now let's take that. I will take another example. I will declare one integer array called A. Okay, so A, and I having the elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, then what will happen is that I am trying to print the value which is there at the index 10 or index 6 something in an array A. Okay, so here 6 is the index and then A is then array. From the array A, you are trying to find an element which is there at the index 6. But look at here, the array index will start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So up to 4th index only is there in the array A, but you are trying to print in a value which is there at the index 6 in the array A. So that is index out of bounds exception. So you need to write the corresponding arithmetic exception. Now in place of arithmetic exception, I will write that one. Okay, is it clear? So what I need to write here is index out of bounds exception. Okay, and then you can write some object and then you can write here something invalid index or wrong index, something I want to display to the user. Okay, wrong index I want to display back to the user. In this case, what will happen is that you will get the output as 5 and wrong index will be displayed, and then Parnika tutorials will be displayed. Now you can ask me one thing, sir, you are saying about the arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, index out of bounds exception. But when I have written the program, I don't know what kind of exception will be raised. Then what I can do is that in place of this one, I can provide the superclass called exception. Okay, exception, let me write E or something. Then here what I will do is that because whatever the exception will be raised, then the object will be thrown and this one will catch. So what I can do, it is a common error you will get. So I can write something went wrong. Something went wrong. Okay, so whether in the try block an arithmetic exception has raised, or null pointer exception has been raised, or index out of bounds exception, any exception has been raised, then this statement will be executed. Now I have one doubt, sir, is it compulsory to provide only single try block? No, you can provide multiple try blocks also. But remember one point, with try block, you should provide either a catch block or finally block. If you simply write a try block, then it will give an error for you. You can provide try block with catch block, or try block with finally block, or try block, catch block, finally block. All these three you can give it. And in a program you can have multiple try blocks also, or multiple catch blocks also. Means you can have a single try and multiple catch also possible. Like suppose if a arithmetic exception has raised, then you can write arithmetic exception some E or something. Similarly, if an array index bound of exception will rise, then you can write the corresponding catch block. So you can write index out of bounds exception. Similarly, null pointer exception rise, then you can write a one catch block for it. Okay, so for a single try block you can have multiple catch blocks also. In a single program you can have multiple try blocks, but only thing is that you should not give alone the try block. You should give a try block with a combination of catch block, a try block with finally block, a try block with catch block, a finally block. What I will do is that I will discuss all these programs in the Notepad++. Now let me define a class called exception ex, because I have saved this program as exceptionex.java. So this class I can call it as a main class or driver class. Okay, now inside this main class I will write the main method. So I need to write it as public static void main string args or ar, anything I can write it. Now what I will do is that I will write system.out.println. I will write 2 plus 3. Okay, let me copy this one. And then let me write 2 into 3. And let me copy this one and paste it. And now I am doing 2 divided by 0. And let me copy this one and I will paste here. And I will write here, welcome to Parnika tutorials. Okay, and now let me close the method, let me close the class. I will save this one and go to the command prompt, and you know that all our programs will be there in the desktop Java programs folder. Okay, now let me compile the program first. So Java C exception ex.java. See, there are no errors. Now let me run the program. Okay, by giving the command called Java exception ex. Now you can see 5 and 6 you got the output, and then you got an exception. What is that one? Exception in thread main java.lang arithmetic exception divided by 0 at exception ex dot main, like this you are getting. So in the line number 7 this exception has been raised. So Here you got the output as 5 and then you got the output as 6 and here you got an exception. But however, this statement was not executed. You did not get an output called welcome to Parnika tutorials. So what I will do is that I will include this one in the try block. Okay, and here I will provide a catch block. In the catch block, okay, I will write arithmetic exception and I will write some e, and now here I will write system.out.println. I will write here you cannot divide by 0. Then what will happen is that whatever the error we have given, that error will be displayed, and I want to display the statement. So I will write here finally. Let me close the finally block, and I have closed the main, and I have closed the, yeah, here I have closed the finally. Let me write it properly so that it will be visible for you. I have opened the finally block and I have closed the finally block and main method, and I have closed the class. So everything is absolutely fine. I have saved this program. Now let me compile it because we have modified the program. There are no errors. Now let me run that program. Okay, Java X. Now you can see earlier we got the output as 5, 6, exception in thread main, like that it got. Now the people who have knowledge about the Java programming, they can understand this one. But the normal users may not understand it. Now you can see this time we got the output as 5, 6. You cannot divide by 0. Then user will understand, okay, somewhere I should not give 0, but however I have given the 0. And then you can see welcome to Parnika tutorials also as given. Okay, now let's take that in place of 2 by 0, I will give 6 by 2. Then what will happen? You know that 6 by 2 will be 3. So you will get the output as 5, 6, 3. As there is no exception has been raised in the try block, and it will not create an object and it will throw. So the statements which are there in the catch block will not be executed. However, the statements which are there in the finally block will be executed. So this program will give me the output as 563. Welcome to Parnika tutorials. If you want to verify, let me clear the screen and let me compile the program again because I have modified the program, and now let me run it. See, you got the output as 563. Welcome to Parnika tutorials. Okay, it is not compulsory that always there should be an exception. Okay, sometimes maybe exception will not rise, then there is no problem. Now let me discuss about the index out of bound exception. Now what I will do here is that I will create an integer array and initialize the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I am writing system.out.println in the array A at index 10. Okay. Now what will happen? Look at here. What will happen is that, let me compile the program again. Oh, we got the compile time error. So this is an example for a compile time error. We forgot to give the semicolon. So the syntax mistake is there. Okay. Look at here. There are no errors. Now let me run the program. Now see, you got the output as 5, 6. Welcome to Parnika tutorials. Then you got exception in main java.lang array index out of bounds exception. See, we did not provide a catch block for the index out of bounds exception. We have provided only exception for arithmetic exception, means catch block for arithmetic exception. So when the try block has been created, there is no user defined statement because we did not provide the catch block for that one. So now if I want to get my own error, then I can write index out of bounds exception. You can see here. Let me write that one, and then I can write the e or anything I can provide, and here I will do, okay, a wrong index. Okay, let me end with a semicolon. Let me end with a semicolon. Let me close the catch block. So you can have a single try block and multiple catch blocks. Now let me save the program. what will happen now? You can see, let me clear the screen and let me compile the program again and let me run the program again. See, this time you got the output as 5 6, wrong index, welcome to Parnika tutorials, because here the exception has raised, then this catch block has been invoked, or this catch block has catched that one, and the particular statement has been executed. Okay, now similarly what I will do here is that I will create a one string variable called s1 and assign the null value. Okay, and now I'm trying to print the length of that one. Okay, s1 dot length. Okay, let me save the program again, compile the program. Now let me run the program. See, you got the output as wrong index. Okay, so instead of that one you want the correct one. Over here wrong index has raised. Once it has raised, then the corresponding one, these statements have not executed. So what I will do is that I will remove the statements, or I will make it comment. Okay, is it clear? Don't think that my program is wrong, because here the exception has raised and the corresponding catch block has been. These statements, the remaining statements which are there in the try block, will not be executed. Already I have discussed in the blackboard. Let me compile the program again. Let me clear the screen and let me compile the program and let me run the program again. Now you can see 5 6, welcome to Parnika tutorials, exception in thread main java.lang null pointer exception. So it is giving its predefined error statement. Now what I will do, I will write cache block, okay, null pointer exception, you can see here, and let me write e and let me open the curly braces, and here what I will do, for a null string, you are finding length, you are finding length, some error you want to display. Okay, let me close this one and let me close the cache block. Okay, for visibility purpose what I will do, I will press the backspace. Now you can able to see this one. Let me save this program and let me clear the screen and let me compile the program again. There are no errors. Let me run the program again. Now you can see you got the output as 5 6. A user defined statement has been displayed. For a null string you are finding the length, and then what are the statements which are there in the finally block has been executed. So you got the output as welcome to Parnika tutorials. Now you may get some more errors also. So what I can do is that in place of multiple cache blocks, because in the try block what are the program I have written, I don't know. So instead of this one, what I will do, I will write the super class called exception. You know that you have the hierarchy. Throwable will be there, then exception will be there, then you will have the runtime errors, and you will have the IO exceptions, runtime exceptions, IO exceptions. Now here what I will do is that something went wrong, I will do. Okay, something went wrong. What kind of exception has been raised? This one will be executed. Let me end with a semicolon. Let me close the cache block, and the finally block has been opened and finally block has been closed, and class everything is absolutely fine. Now let me save the program and go to the command prompt, and now let me compile the program again and let me run the program. Now you can see 5 6 something went wrong. What kind of exception will be raised? Okay, let me uncomment this one. This time also, even the index is wrong, it will give an output as something went wrong. Let me compile the program again. Okay, let me run the program. Now you can see 5 6 something went wrong. Okay, something wrong. Is it clear? So any exception has been raised, this one will be executed. If you don't know which exception will be raised, then you can simply write this one. Okay, now I want to try few experiments. What I will do is that I will remove this cache block. Okay, and I will, or let me cut this one. Okay, let me save this program, and now what I will do, I will clear the screen again, I will compile the program. Now you see you got an error. Try without catch, comma, finally, or resource declaration. Already I told you, you cannot give a only try block without combination of try and catch. Try with catch finally or try with finally. Once you given single try block, then error will come. Now what I will do, I will simply provide the catch block. We'll see what will happen. Let me paste this one, or I will not include this catch block. I will just provide the finally. Let's see what will happen. One by one we will do the experiments. Let me compile the program again. Now you did not get any error. Am I right? Now let me run the program again. Java exception. The exception has been raised. Okay, and it is giving the predefined exception output. If I provide only catch block, if I does not provide the finally block, also not a problem. Okay, if you want to see, you can see. Let me remove this finally block. Okay, let me save this one and let me clear the screen and let me compile the program. Let me run the program. Okay, 5 6 something went wrong. The finally block has not executed because there is no finally block. Similarly, you can even have multiple try blocks with multiple catch blocks. That is also possible. So what I will do here is that I will remove these statements from this one, and here I will write arithmetic exception. Okay, then I will paste these things. I will provide another try block. Open that one. Let me close the one. Okay, and I will have another catch block. Here this time what I will do, index out of bounds exception some g. Okay, and let me write system dot out dot println wrong index. So I have multiple try blocks with multiple catch blocks combination. Okay, now let me close the catch block. Let me save this program. Okay, let me compile the program again. There are no errors. Let me run the program. See, you got the output as 5 6. Okay, wrong index. What actually happened here is that first it started executing this try block. As there is no exception, the catch block has not executed. Here, when it is executing the try block, there is an exception here. In this statement, the exception has raised. Then the corresponding catch block we have provided, and it was execute this one. Now we will do one more thing. Even in this try block there is an exception. In this try block also there is an exception. Now what will happen we will see. Okay, let me clear the screen and again compile the program because we have done the modifications. Let me run the program. Say you got 5, something went wrong and wrong index. So when there is an exception in this first try block and this catch block has been executed, again this try block there is an exception has raised and the statements which are there in this corresponding catch block has been executed. I hope you have understood about this exception handling. In the next video, I will discuss about the user-defined exceptions. If you still have any doubts related to these concepts, feel free to ask me in the comment section. I will try to clear your doubts as early as possible. Thank you for watching the complete video. Have a nice day.